And he's saying to me, just call the police. I just want to die. Let them shoot me. I hope they kill me. He literally has the car door open, trying to jump out of the car, and I am pulling him back in. We get to the hospital. He walks straight in and tells them, I tried to cut my arm off with a saw. They're like, okay, he's going to get some help because this is obviously not normal behavior. They test him. The only thing he had in his system was alcohol. They let him sober up, and they tell me that I can take him home.
This episode of The Recovery Couch is brought to you by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today and tell him The Recovery Couch sent you. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Recovery Couch, where we deliver faith-based stories and messages without filters. That's why The Recovery Couch exists. To meet people exactly where they are, because here we believe when you offer someone a space to be real, you're also offering them a space to heal. So excited about this conversation. So let's welcome to the show, Christina Daley. Christina, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So tell us about your son.
Blake was a really funny kid. He made a lot of friends. He was very well liked, even throughout his whole life before he passed away. Like, he was everybody's friend and everybody's person, is what I've been told by his friends. And he was a pretty happy kid up until teenage years. And that's when everything started to fall apart a little bit.
Yeah, dive into that. So when you say fall apart.
Well, he started self-harming when he was probably about 14, maybe a little bit younger than that. I had his two siblings are 11 and 13 years younger than him. So around that time, I was also preoccupied with babies. And he was starting to have self-image issues. So he started self-harming, and he came to me and told me that he was doing that. And so I got him into therapy right away. But he asked me, he was going to Catholic school at the time, and asked me if I'd consider putting him in the public school. So I put him in the public school, where he started making other friends, and he started changing the way he looked, self-expression, coloring his hair, growing it out. More of the quote emo kid. I think it was the summer between his 7th grade year that went really well. Between 8th grade and freshman year, he started smoking pot. He had really high anxiety. As a parent, you're like, oh, well, this is part of what they do. So you don't think it's going to morph into something huge. That didn't happen to me. Obviously, I didn't let him do it, but it was really hard to stop at the same time. As time went on, he was more blatantly doing it. He would come home high. I'd catch him getting high in his bedroom. He just didn't care. He also then was drinking. He was stealing alcohol. The first thing that happened that was like a big, oh my God, is I was in bed and I got a call from the police. And they're like, your son was pulled over in a car. He was 15 at the time with a drunk driver. They were going excessive speeds, and you need to come get him. Well, as far as I knew, he was in bed. So I asked the police officer, I said, I need to process this for a minute. So he told me where he was, and I got there, and the person who was driving was 14, was also drunk, and they had been out with this kid who was 18, and they decided that he was too drunk to drive. So that's why the 14-year-old was driving. I mean, they could have died very easily. So that was the beginning of him starting to get in trouble, and he was on probation. And I thought, like, okay, maybe this will be a wake-up call, but it was not. It just, things continued to get worse.
So there was a relationship where he felt like he could come to his mom and say, hey, this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
When the substance use started, the marijuana and the alcohol, was that still the case, or was he a little more introverted?
The hard thing was he never hid who he was, really. So he wasn't trying to hide it. He wasn't doing it right in front of us, but he didn't care to come home drunk or high. So I knew it was a problem. No, he didn't come to me at that point in time, but I was still like, okay, he's just wild. His dad was a little wild too in high school, and that's when we met. So I was like, he's just being a little wild. So I still wasn't sure it was a problem at that point in time. Yes, he was getting in trouble, but I didn't see it as addiction quite yet. He continued to do the things that he was doing, and he had stolen probably like $700 worth of change and bought drugs for him and his friends the entire summer. It was a moment that I was like, oh my God, he stole from us. My husband was not happy, obviously, and I had a friend at the time whose husband was a juvenile probation officer. I called her and I was like, what do I do? And he said I should press charges on him. Well, I don't want to press charges on my own child. I didn't. And he told my husband one day that we couldn't stop him. He was going to do whatever he wanted, and there was nothing that we could do about it. So at that point in time, I was having to make a decision whether I should keep him in my house with my children or send him to go live with his dad, because he was bringing marijuana into the house. He was drunk. I know that he was doing pills because I would find like the chopped up, like he was snorting them. So I sent him to go live with his dad, thinking that it would get him away from the kids that he was with, because he didn't have his driver's license or anything yet. So it was very frustrating, because it also can cause friction, obviously, in a marriage, because he's my child and I love him and I want to protect him, and he's my husband and this is my marriage and I have other children with him. So it always felt like I was being pulled. As a mother, you're supposed to protect your child, but I had to protect my other children too. So that was a very hard decision for me.
Yeah, it's a difficult dynamic, Christina, because those are the layers that we talk about in substance abuse counseling. When you research, like, okay, somebody didn't just go and pick up a drug one day and started to use it, and then they were like, hey, let me volunteer my life to spiral out of control. There's
Right.
layers to it. And, family dynamics are typically one of those layers. So
Yeah.
he is, at this point, is living with his father. Blake moves in with his father.
Yes.
And this probably brings a little bit of relief to you and family at home.
Yes, because then I wasn't dealing with the everyday things. We talked every day while he was gone. We would text every day, and I would go and get him on the weekends. I would pick him up. We'd go out to dinner. We'd go do things with his sisters, like, roller skating, go bowling. I was being the, quote, Disney mom. I was like, oh, fine. I actually enjoyed our time together, because he didn't take off and go anywhere when he was here. He literally stayed with us the whole time. He wasn't sneaking off and getting high. He was able to behave that like 24, 48 hours that he was here. So I feel like that healed us some as a family, being able to enjoy each other and our time together.
Would you say that you and Blake got closer in those 24 and 48 hours? Family aside, just Christina and Blake?
Yes. Yeah. We were always very close, even when he was acting a fool. Like I was his person. Like I've had people tell me that he would tell them, like, I am his person. I'm the person he could not live without. I was his best friend.
And it sounds like he didn't want to share his mom with anybody.
Yeah. And I never thought about it like that, but yeah, probably.
So you guys are healing. He's present. You're able to be present with him since he's present. What happens next?
So he's going to school up north. We talk him into going to the vocational school. He is definitely is a smart kid, but I felt like he needed to pick like welding or plumbing, or one of those jobs would be really great for him. So he chose electrical trades. So he went to the JVS for electrical trades. He was actually doing pretty well there until prom. And then he got I guess you would call it an OVI. He was driving the wrong way with his headlights out, and he was super high on Xanax. Doesn't remember anything when he got pulled over and got arrested. So because he lost his driver's license, and the school that he was going to had to be able to drive to, and with his dad's job, his dad couldn't get him to school because it was, just the logistics weren't going to work out. So we had to bring him back home. So he was on probation and Troy. And so I would have to drive him to Troy once a week to meet with his probation officer. So I begged my husband to let me bring him home because he's going to be better. He promises he's going to be better. I know that's something people hear all the time. He's going to be better. He made a mistake. I begged the vocational school here to take him. He's going to be great. He's going to be a great student. And so we bring him back home, and the first weekend he is home, he disappears. Like, he goes to go with his friends. It was 4th of July, and told him to be home at a certain time, and he didn't show up. So I had to hunt him down. I had a Life 360 on his phone. So his phone was at this house, and I kept calling, and nobody's answering. And finally somebody answers, and the kid tells me, well, I don't know who that is. And I was like, you picked him up from my house, dude. So where is he? They didn't know where he was. Well, we went to go see fireworks, and he got out of the car. But I have his shoes and his pants and his wallet and his phone. Well, I was like, what is he wearing? And he was wearing the kid's shorts, no shoes, walking around. So I told the kid I was coming to his house to get his stuff, and he said, well, I'll just bring it to you in the morning. And I said, no, I don't believe you that he's not there. So I went in and got his stuff, and I came home, and I drove, like, I knew a route that he would take if he was on a skateboard and on his bike. And so I kind of drove that route home, but he was sleeping in one of our cars in the driveway when he got home because he couldn't get in the house. So my husband did not know this was going on. Like, he didn't know I left the house to go look for him or anything. And so I bring him in the house, and I'm like, just be quiet. But he couldn't be quiet. So then my husband comes downstairs, and my son's crying, I'm sorry, I messed up, and of course my husband was upset, like, you promised it would be better. It's the first weekend, and then this happens. But I couldn't send him back to his dad's either. So we were kind of stuck, so to speak. So he starts school, and things just got worse because he's back with the old crowd. So he's abusing. He had ADD, so I had him on ADD medicine, and I tried to keep it locked up, but he figured out how to pick the lock on the box that we had. While he was on probation, he had to pass a drug test, so he was not doing drugs, but he was drinking cough syrup, taking boxes of Benadryl. Like, I didn't know people could get high off those things, but apparently they can. And so one day I came home, and he was just psychosis.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I take him to the hospital. He had drank 4 bottles of cough syrup. So I took him to the hospital, and I was like, this is a cry for help, and they were just kind of like, let him sober up, let him talk to the social worker, and then send us home. And so I bring him home, and I thought I found all of them, but he had more cough syrup and drank more when we got home. So, so he learned how to get high off of different things when he didn't, when he had to pass drug test. He was drinking too, which they didn't test for that. So like, it was like every day, like he was like almost hallucinating. He had spiders crawling in his room, like, because of the different things that he was taking. And so finally he told his probation officer, I need help. Like, I need help. He asked his probation officer to put him on house arrest. He asked for an ankle monitor. So we went to the judge and said, can we have an ankle monitor for 30 days? So they put him on house arrest. He was allowed to go to work or go to school and come home, but he still had people bring stuff to him. So it was like he wanted the help, but he just couldn't stop. And at the time, our health insurance and things did not cover anything mental health. So every time I took him to the hospital or to a therapist or anything, everything was out of pocket. And I feel like that might have kept like a social worker from helping us, because Like we didn't have the insurance to cover it. I don't know. I mean, since he's been gone, I've met so many people, and I know there's so many programs out there, but I didn't have anyone that was like, hey, you can do this or you can do that or try this. It was just kind of like, oh, well, he sobered up, he's fine, and sent him home. I'm going to say it was his senior year. He graduated 2019. So he was 18 his entire senior year of high school because he was born in 2000.
Okay.
So midway through his senior year, um, he bought drugs from his girlfriend at the time's ex-boyfriend. And the ex-boyfriend calls his school and says he has drugs on him. So he had bought Adderall or something like that, and he had taken all of them that he had bought. And so the school called me, and he got expelled halfway through his senior year. But the school, I have to say, the school was so great because he told the principal, he said, I have a problem and I can't stop and I want to be better, and they worked with him. So they had me withdraw him from school so it wouldn't go against him. And they let me do online classes and then let him come back after a couple months and re-enroll him. And he was able to graduate. He was very honest with judges, with his probation officers. I mean, like, I have a problem. I did it, like, which I think actually worked against him long term once we get to that point, because I think he got away with a lot of stuff that maybe he should have went to juvie or something for, because he was so honest and so likable and very charming without being trying to be charming.
Authentically charming.
Yes. So right after graduation, him and his girlfriend at the time, these are when some of the major things started happening. Him and his girlfriend at the time were out and about, and I was at work, and they came back here and they had been drinking. And my husband calls me and he says, the kids are drunk. When are you coming home? And I said, I'm on my way. And he said, well, Blake was getting in the car to leave. So he had basically jumped in the car and taken Blake's keys so he couldn't go anywhere. And there was a confrontation between my husband and the girlfriend because she was like, you're just his stepdad. You're nothing. You're nobody, And so he's like, you need to get home. So I called this girl's parents and asked them to come get her, which they didn't seem to think it was an emergency. But I call my husband back and I'm on the phone with him and I hear her in the background screaming. And my husband said, what did he do now? And he hung up the phone. So I get home and the girl has been picked up, and my little girls, who at the time they would have been kindergarten and second grade, come running out of the house and they start screaming, Bobby hurt himself really bad. He hurt himself really bad. Well, he had the whole self-harm thing again. He had gotten a Sawzall and was sawing on his arm with it. And the girls were witnessing all of this. And finally, my husband, like, grabs that away from him, and then he's ramming his head into our car, or our garage door. When I got home, there was blood everywhere, running into the garage door with his head and all these things. And finally, he says to him, what are you doing? Look at what you're doing to your sisters, because these little girls are witnessing this whole thing. And so then he's all over them. So he's drunk and bloody and he's hugging them. I'm so sorry. It was just, I came home to just an absolute mess. So I walk in, and I'm a very calm person when it's chaotic. I don't know. I'm just super focused. So I walk in and I see his arm. I was like, all right, I guess we're going to the hospital. I don't ask any questions. I just take him. He goes to the car. He's so mad at me. Like, all the way to the hospital, he is literally trying to jump out of the car. So I'm trying to drive and hold on to him. And he's saying to me, just call the police. I just want to die. Let them shoot me. I hope they kill me. I don't know if, well, yeah, you have, because you went to Barnes and Nobles. The intersection before Swain on North Fairfield and New Germany Trayvine, we're at that intersection. He literally has the car door open, trying to jump out of the car, and I am pulling him back in. We get to the hospital. He walks straight in and tells them, I tried to cut my arm off with a saw. And so they're like, okay. So I'm like, okay, he's going to get some help, because this is obviously not normal behavior. And so they take us to the room that they put you in when you're there for mental health or whatever. And they test him. The only thing he had in his system was alcohol. And so they let him sober up. They come and talk to him, and they tell me that I can take him home. And I said, if I take him home, like he's going to kill himself. And they said, well, I guess you need to just watch him. So I took him home. But at that point, I was like, you cannot stay here with these babies, because they're traumatized. So he goes back to live with his dad, which lasted a very short time, because the girlfriend went with him and she lied about a lot of things. So his dad kicked her out and he went with her. So there was like, I'd say the timeline is so like, everything is so close together, but, so there was a time that I wasn't hearing from him. I didn't know where he was at. It was probably maybe a week or so. And then I get a text message from the girl's mother, who said that Blake was on the way to the hospital because he tried to slit his own throat with a knife. They had been in a hotel, and I guess they were smoking meth all week. And this is really when I was like, well, he's done. I've lost him. Because you know, I knew a lot, but I was pretty naive. But I always, growing up, oh, don't do meth, don't do crack. Like, you'll never get off of it if you do that. Don't do heroin. Those are the things you're addicted right away and you can't get off of. So that's immediately went to my brain that this is it. This is it. So I walk in the hospital, and he has ripped his IV out and he is screaming, I want meth. Like, that's what he's screaming. So I come in, I get him calmed down. He had also ran into the wall again. His head was bloody. And they basically put us in this room and nobody came and checked on him. Like, nobody checked his vitals. Nobody cleaned his head up. Like, eventually I had texted a client of mine who happened to be a nurse at this particular hospital, and said something to her. And so they brought me stuff to clean him up. They didn't even clean him up. I cleaned him up. And my sister came because she's like, I need to come be with you and help you. The police had brought him in, so they did pink slip him. So for a 72-hour hold. The social worker comes in and talks to him, of course, after he's sober up. And she says, well, he says he's fine, so you can take him home. And I said,
hold on. He hadn't even been there 72 hours?
He hadn't even been there 24 hours. So I am flipping out on this lady. And I'm like, listen, you are the same lady who saw him when he tried to cut off his arm with a saw. And now he's tried to do this. And you are telling me this is normal behavior. And I need to take him home. I'm not taking him home. I don't want to take him home. And so my sister just looked at her and she said, you need to go try again. She comes back out after a little bit and she goes, oh, he's been pink slipped. So she didn't even know that he had been pink slipped. So, but then she said, but you can take him if you want. I'm like, did we just not have the conversation that I don't want to take him? So we were 24 hours in the ER before they even came and got him. And they took him someplace in Dayton. and released him the next day.
And we're talking about a place that's typically going to have a 72-hour hold, right?
He said all they wanted to do was give me drugs to calm me down, and I told them I was fine. Like, I mean, people are pretty good at talking people out of things. I told this story at another group, and the amount of parents that told me that they had a very similar situation, they're like, oh yeah, those places will just let them go. Give them a bus ticket. There you go. So he called my dad to come pick him up, and he was out again.
This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by JB Davis at South Dayton Toyota. For integrity, service, and unbeatable deals, call JB and his team at 513-267-5225 and tell them the Recovery Couch sent you. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. Blake walks out of that facility, not into rehab like the plan was, and he calls his grandpa to come and get him. The system had every opportunity, and it let him go. In part 2, Christina is going to take us through what happens next. And I'll warn you, it gets heavier before it gets lighter. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. This is the kind of story that needs to be heard. And Christina, we are so grateful you're trusting us with it. We'll see you again in part 2. And don't forget, get a copy of your book. You can do so at www.brandoncouch.com or www.recoverycouch.com. And remember, you always have a seat right here on the Recovery Couch.